It does not take a genius or an email expert to make sure that your marketing emails actually land in the inbox instead of spam. I'm going to show you some easy things you can do to make sure that happens right now. The first thing is you have to understand that you have your own email score/reputation. Basically, this score and reputation is what the email providers that you were sending to, like Gmail, Outlook, Yahoo, Apple, etc., this score is what they use to determine where they're going to filter you, either spam or inbox. The first thing that you should do before you start sending emails is make sure that you have your own dedicated sending domain. Most tools, right, like MailChimp, even GoHighLevel, they have a built-in default sending domain. The problem is when you use that, you are sharing a reputation with everybody else using it, and I guarantee you most of those people are not following good practices, and that means their bad habits will affect you. So the first thing you want to do is set up your own domain. For example, mail.marketwithmark.com. That's where all of my marketing emails come from. I've got a whole guide that'll have pop up here and I'll link down below of how you can set this up easily inside of GoHighLevel. It is not complicated and is 100% worth it. Once you have your own domain, now you can start following the best practices I'm about to lay out and avoid the bad ones to start building your reputation so all of your emails land in the right place. The first thing you want to focus on is getting opens. This is the easiest step towards building credibility, which is essentially what we are trying to do. We're trying to show these email providers that we are legitimate senders. And the first signal is people actually opening your emails. So make sure you're using subject lines and sending emails to lists that have actually opted in, that are actually expecting to hear from you, so you get a good open rate. And we'll talk in the next slide about what that good open rate should look like. The next thing is you should be encouraging replies. There's some good strategies you can do this. One strategy I like is, especially for something like a lead magnet, when someone opts in my first email, I'll say, hey, you can actually get this bonus as well for free if you reply to this email with the word bonus. Replies are a huge positive signal to email providers because, on average, people do not reply to emails that are spam or that they're not interested in. So replies are the next big signal that you should be looking for. The next thing, and this is huge, make sure that you are only sending emails to people that want your emails. Do not just scrape some email list. Don't pull an email list from a friend or another business or whatever. Make sure you are only sending emails to people who have opted in to hear from you. A smaller list of people that actually want to hear from you is 1,000 times more valuable than a huge list of people that have never heard of you. They're going to cause a ton of the negative signals that we'll talk about down below. The next easy thing you can do is when you're sending your campaigns, you should batch send them. This is really easy in HighLevel. When you go to sending, you can click to batch send. I recommend if you're brand new and you're building a new email reputation, you should batch send to no more than 50 people every 30 minutes. This will just make it so it's not going to blast out to 500 people at a time. It's going to blast out to small segments, which causes more positive signals, or at the very least, avoid some big negative signals to those email providers. Let's talk about some things you should absolutely avoid, right? The first thing, like I just said, blasting emails to huge lists. You can do this down the road if you have a high quality list and a really good email reputation that's been warmed up, but right away, avoid this. Use batch scheduling, use segmentation. Do not send it to a huge list all at once. Do not send to cold or old contacts. What I mentioned earlier, don't scrape a list from someone on Upwork and start blasting them. If you have an old list of people from a different business or even the same business that you haven't engaged with in years, you're better off just not including those people. Start building a new list of warm people that actually want to hear from you and what you're offering. Do not ignore bounce rates or spam complaints. These are massive signals to those email providers that you are illegitimate and you're a spammer. If you're getting high spam complaints and bounce rates, which we'll talk about in the next slide, you want to adjust your strategy. Avoid trigger messaging. There's certain messaging and keywords that triggers these spam filters that will immediately put you in spam. Big things you want to avoid, and you can get a little bit more lenient with this later on when you're warm and have a good reputation, but especially right away, avoid like money and hype language, anything that could be perceived as get rich quick or too good to be true, false urgency of like fake sales or fake pressure, over promotional language. right? Like massive value stacks of, hey, normally this is $5,000, but today only you can get it for just $48, right? Avoid that stuff. Again, you can get away with a little bit more when you have a good reputation, as is pretty much the case with anything in life. But early on, your first impressions are really important, and you want to make sure that you're being squeaky clean and playing by the rules. Also, emojis, especially in headlines, I see this all the time. This is a massive spam trigger to these email providers. Just do not put emojis. If you want to put some in your email, that can be okay. Definitely avoid it, though, in your subject lines. And I see a lot of people do this now because most people are just having ChatGPT straight up write everything for them, and then they verbatim copy and paste it in. And ChatGPT, for some reason, loves to use emojis, so avoid that. All right, next let's look at some email KPIs, right? Key performance indicators. These are just the key 4 things that you should keep track of to make sure that you're building a good reputation. The first thing is your open rate. Very self-explanatory. Are people opening your emails? We talked about that being the first positive signal when it comes to building an email reputation. If you're between a 25 to 40%, you're good to go. Now, some industries are a little bit different. These are just kind of the blanket averages across the board. If you're under 20% consistently, that's a red flag. Adjust your strategy, try better subject lines, make sure your list isn't cold or unengaged, etc. The next thing is going to be your reply rate. This is what I said, that second big signal that you want to go for early on. If you get some replies every time you send an email, that's awesome, even if it's like 1 to 3. If you don't get replies all the time, that's okay, but you should be trying to get some replies. And that strategy I mentioned earlier with the lead magnet plus the bonus is a really easy way to do this. If you get 0 replies across multiple sends, that's typically a bad sign. The next thing is going to be your bounce rate. This basically determines if your emails are failing to send. So if you get a big list that's scraped and a bunch of those emails are out of service or weren't even legitimate, this just signals to the internet email world that you're not legit, you don't have a good list, and most people that don't have good lists are spammers. So if you're under 2%, you're pretty much good here, but if you're over 5%, you definitely want to make sure that you clean up your list. And finally, your unsubscribe rate and your spam complaints, right? This is the biggest signal that people don't want to hear from you if they unsubscribe, or even worse, if they report you as spam. If you're under a 0.5 per send rate here for this, you're good. But if you're over 1% consistently, then again, go back and make sure that your list is actually people that opted in, people that want to hear from you, and make sure that what you're sending them is in alignment with what they're expecting to hear from you. So again, you don't have to be an email expert. You can get a lot more complicated with email than this. But to be honest with you, I have sold millions and millions of dollars in online programs and courses, and this is really all I pay attention to, and it served me just fine, and it can serve you just fine as well. If you found the video to be helpful, please go ahead and give it a like. I've got a link in the description with a ton of free resources for GoHighLevel, course creation, just online marketing in general. Feel free to check those out. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. I'll see you next time. Peace.